Hi, this video is about self-directed learning. My name is Janice Myers. So a common misconception of self-directed learning is that it's simply about making decisions within your learning. For example, a basic one would be choosing to go right or choosing to go left. Within education, it could be deciding to do research on a computer rather than doing a handwritten assignment. Or within online training, deciding to do one module over the next because the one module applies more to your life and what you're doing. Malcolm Knowles, who is a well-known American educator, and he's also well known for his connections to adult learning, describes self-directed learning as, in its broadest meaning, self-directed learning describes a process by which individuals take the initiative, with or without the assistance of others, in diagnosing their learning needs, formulating learning goals, identify human and material resources for learning, choosing and implement appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating learning outcomes. To better explain that definition, I'm going to relate self-directed learning to deciding to go on a trip. So if I was deciding to go on a trip, one choice I would have to make is where am I going to go on a trip to? A lot of people may think that that's self-directed learning, deciding where to go. However, self-directed learning encompasses much more than just choosing your destination. You would also have to choose your means of transportation. You would need to develop and execute a route. You would have to look at how much money you have and if you could even afford the trip. And finally, you would have to take into consideration your time constraints. How long would it take to get there? How long would I stay? And how long would it take for me to come back? So you can see it's much more than just making decisions. It's about planning and self-monitoring and doing pretty much the whole learning process on your own with guidance and resources. So there are a few components of self-directed learning. We can see them below in this graphic. There is self-motivation, self-management, self-monitoring, and self-modification. A learner must have self-motivation to enter the learning task to begin with, to take on the responsibility of learning, to plan their own learning outcomes and activities. The learner must have self-management to control one's behavior and resources, to think independently, solve problems creatively, and make decisions. The learner must have self-monitoring to consciously monitor one's own thinking and actions through self-reflection, evaluation, and metacognition. And finally, the learner must have self-modification, which means that they're able to change their behavior based on the self-monitoring and on feedback received from others. Another misconception of self-directed learning is that it has to be completely done on one's own. That's not true. Self-directed learning can always be done with the guidance of an instructor. So this is where you would be receiving the feedback from others. For self-directed learning to take place, the learner must take an initiative to pursue a learning experience, and the learner has the responsibility for completing their learning. So adult learning and self-directed learning are very similar, and they share a lot of the same components. Lindman, the author of The Meaning of Adult Education, believes adults have a deep need to be self-directing. In order to make the connections between adult learning and self-directed learning, we're going to look at the 6 assumptions of adult learners. This could also be called the 6 assumptions of Andragogy. The 6 assumptions are that you need to know, the learner's self-concept, the learner's experience, the readiness to learn, the orientation to learning, and finally the motivation to learn. So the Angergagi assumption connections between adult learning and self-directed learning would be that in both cases, the learners are highly motivated to participate in the learning process. There's a practical meaning of learning in both because the learner is choosing to complete the learning to further themselves in their life. There's a readiness to learn, and there's an orientation to learn. So this means that they're able to apply the information that they learn right away. Here's my bibliography for the information that I've gone over today. Feel free to visit any of these websites to find additional information on the topic. Thank you.